Hello. Okay, so getting right into the week ahead, I'm going to start here on this is the ES on the daily, and this is the ES futures chart on the 30-minute time frame. And yes, I've been saying all along that our simple statement has been that as long as daily EMA 12 is holding, then the bulls have complete control. And we definitely had some tests and now closes below that EMA on the daily time frame. And so you might be thinking, oh, this could be the beginning of a downtrend. And actually, if I just put on an indicator here, yes, we had a low, a higher low, higher high, higher low, lower high, and now a lower low that immediately reversed and came back up. So this is not the most bearish that I've seen. As a matter of fact, I look at this and I think these bears can't prove anything. I'm like very, very hesitant to believe in the bears still. And I'll show you here on the 30-minute time frame. Here was this move back so a week prior Thursday, and I just did a fib pull. And this is the move from last Thursday, the 12th, where it dropped hard and then set this bottom. And I just did a fib pull from that just to sort of get a sense for where are we within this, based on, I actually pulled it back here to see when we got a bounce here, what retracement should I be looking for to expect a higher low. And then I forgot about it and I left it there. And I came back this weekend to do another review of the ES futures. And what do I see is that we basically moved back to the top of that range, then we moved back to the bottom of that range, then we moved back up again, and now we're in balance as of Friday. And on Friday, we had these sharp moves down, and I'll show you the same thing on NQ in a second, and like could not get a move down. And so I look at this, and we're basically an inside day on Friday, but actually I think, yeah, it's basically an inside day on Friday. Let me zoom out again. It doesn't show up that way on this chart. It shows, yeah, it includes this drop on the daily bar. So that kind of makes sense that it's not an inside day, but look at this balance. Like I look at this move up and then balance as like, this is not weakness. And let's look at NQ, because in the middle of the day here at NQ, we had a very harsh drop. Like we were trying to recover. Let me go back to the 5. Where was it? Here, we were trying to recover, and then there was another leg down. And that happened on some news about semiconductors, and all the semis moved down sharply. And at the time, it felt like a pretty terrible drop. But if you just look at prior day, like where are we within the drop that happened before? We're just within that range. It's sort of the same thing here as it was on ES. I'll pull the same fib. Okay, top to bottom, that fib pull, same thing. Move back to the top, move back to the bottom, almost made it all the way to the top, balance. So this is just balance, and it's not really weakness yet. I think we really need to see a convincing move down from the bears to make this a reality. And when I jump out to QQQ, I know a lot of people use futures charts to sort of, you get more hours of trading in a futures chart, so you feel like you get a better picture. But I personally really like the simplicity of the daily chart on QQQ. And if I jump to the weekly time frame here, remember I talked about this last weekend, that we're looking at this weekly stair step, and look, we broke it with absolutely zero follow through, right? Like that, this is not a show of weakness. Like if the bears were going to show up and really prove something, they would have broken that weekly stair step and they would have pushed down hard, targeting, the weekly EMA 12 or something, try to erase a bunch of these days or weeks, and they were not able to do it at all. And so I look at this and I'm like, I'm just not convinced yet. Yes, we had a close below the daily EMA 12 here on QQQ. Yes, and technically the trend on Qs is down, right? Technically speaking. But we have not lost that daily EMA 12. And so it's basically still holding. I still think that even now, yes, the doors have opened for the possibility of a down move, but they had the opportunity to really push it hard, and they didn't. And as a matter of fact, what I'm going to show you next is something that happened early in the trading day on Friday after the holiday. Look at this move up we had in pre-market. Like here was their chance to, the trend here was down. We're going down, right? And what do? They push up into the open and make it so that any down move we get during the day is negated by that push up. So we're still in this balance, right? And so I just don't really believe in the bears right now. Now, you see I have something here that says train your eyes to see extension, especially against trend. So this is something I always pay attention to now. Every day when I'm sitting there waiting for something to happen during the day, this is what I'm looking for. And this one happened in pre-market, but I'm looking for extension. I want to see, and the best is extension, not off the open. Of course, on the open, people are pushing stocks in one way or the other, and it's pretty wild on the open. But if you see an extension midday, like these extensions we saw down here, that's something to be paying attention to. And I'll talk a little bit about that in another trade I did later. But especially with this one, right? Like right now, we know that we're sort of in this balance and the bears are trying to push it down. And you're aware, like I just drew from this high, we're sort of trying to get it pushed down. You know, you can even see that arc just visually at the tops, if you look at the tops of these candles in the 30-minute time frame. So when we come into Friday and in the pre-market stocks, it's pushing up. And by the way, look at these wicks at the top, wick. But in the pre-market, you're seeing these wicks forming at the top. It's pushing up and then pulling down, and pushing up and pulling down. This is not the kind of strength that I want to see if I'm looking for a reversal, right? Like you're basically opening the door, and look at this. There's this top from Tuesday. Then Wednesday was an inside day, which I don't think it was technically an inside day. Yeah, the low here broke very slightly, right? It broke and then came up, but it's essentially an inside day. So we had a move down, balance, and then in the pre-market we get a solid push up above the high of prior day, which is essentially, like I said, an inside day. And look, where does it stop? Right at this top from this day. So you're coming up against a downtrending resistance. You're showing signs of not being able to get far. And then what happens when the market opens? It tries to push up further. It hits that what I would call a level burner, and then reverses and comes back down. This is gold, right? Like this is the market telling you before the day even opens to be looking for a short. You know, everything's trying to trend down overall. The bears are trying. There's this ridiculous push pre-market on whatever news it was. I don't even know if there was news. And so you're looking like, where can this stop? And let me just show you on, let's go to I think it was the 2-minute time frame was nice and clear. I mean, let's even go to the 1. Okay, so here's the push up, right? You know, if you're zoomed in on the chart on the open, you're in here and you're looking, look at this pre-market move. You're like, oh my God, the Qs are so strong today. You're looking at this in pre-market, and a lot of people will be thinking, I got to get long. We're going back to the top, baby. That's not, you're missing that context of the higher time frame. Like look at the 30-minute chart, look at the hourly chart, look at the daily chart, understand what's generally happening overall. And you have a pre-market push up into resistance, right? And so I'm thinking, I'm zooming out. I'm looking, are we going to break this high? There. Are we going to break that high? Are we going to break this high? Are we going to break this high? And you're paying attention, right? Like you are aware of these levels that you need to be paying attention to. And price is pushing up pre-market. Market opens. The very first move we get from the open was right here. I'll zoom right in so we can see this. Let's just play this as an opening range, okay? So market opens right here. And the first move you get is down. And it immediately reverses out of that down move. So here is your low, your opening range low. So mark that off. Opening range low. So now you're looking for an opening range high. Okay, so it comes back up, does a bit of balance, pushes up higher, pushes up higher. Every time it does, you're like, oh, this could be the top. No, it pushed higher. This could be the top. What happens? It comes down, pushes up, doesn't get there again, and starts to come down. This is what I call a lower high. And so your opportunity for a short is right there. And you know it's going up against this 3-day, from 2 days ago from today, so this is the 3rd day, the 3-day resistance, right? And so you put your short on against that high of day here. So you're watching, this bar couldn't get there. Look at that upper wick. It's showing you on the 1-minute time frame. Boom, there's your short. What do you get out of that trade? What's the risk reward if you zoom right out? This is an insane trade. It's just like banger. So let's just say that you maximized it and you got all the way down to there. You're looking at an 18, the risk reward ratio is 18.29. So let's just call it around 18. That's insane. Look at that opportunity. So this is why those extensions are important. And it's also why it's so important to be zoomed out. I digress. Something worth talking about. Okay. So I think when I look at the week ahead and I think about what the simple statement is, I mean, as long as we're in balance up here and we're not breaking these lows, the bulls are in complete control. It leaves us sort of in a state of not, like, I'm not really convinced one way or the other. Are we going to keep going sideways? Are we going to shoot up? Are we going to go down? Like, when I really think about this, let me clean off this chart completely. So clean it up from indicators and everything. So we're in this balance up here. Right? And there's lots of things you could think about what's going to happen. Are we basically forming an inverse head and shoulders and going to have a serious down move? Are we just going to continue sideways and then break one way or the other? Are we going to start coming in and setting a weekly high or low, right? And so you just don't know. And it's not a really good spot to be initiating trades in the middle of this when you just don't know which direction it's going to go, personally, I think. I know I've seen a lot of big bets to the downside. I've even seen big bets to the upside. There was a huge SPY put at the end of the day Friday. But I think, like, for me, most likely scenario from here is continuing sideways until a break, or healthy weekly consolidation. And there's so much room for weekly consolidation. I think that a rally from here is possible, but it's not ideal. We're seeing things feeling a little bit exhausted. So an immediate push out of here would kind of suck. Like, just for a healthy market, you kind of want to bid it down before you get that up, right? You could even think of it like, you've had this move up and then you get a little cup with handle to keep it going, right? That would be, in my mind, ideal. So I'm actually a little bit hungry for weekly consolidation. If we could get it, I think that would be great. And what might that look like? So weekly consolidation would be a nice move down and touch of the weekly EMA 12, something down in here and then back up would be really nice. And so that's what I'm hoping for. That's my ideal situation. But I don't know what we're going to get, and we'll see what happens this week. My simple statement for the week is that as long as this range continues to hold, bulls have complete control. And if that range breaks, then I'm scouting weekly higher low. Okay, moving on. A few names I wanted to talk about. First of all, gold. Gold has been in a daily uptrend now for a little while and continues to. It's not exactly holding daily EMA 12. And actually, if you look at this on the weekly, it's holding weekly EMA 12. Every little test of weekly EMA 12 has really held. And so, you kind of got to be aware that there's this ceiling up ahead that of I guess it's all-time high that we're looking to break out over. But you kind of have to be ready at any point for this daily trend to take a breather and give us that touch of the weekly EMA 12. So I'm thinking about that as well. However, I think if the market overall does start to pull in, then we're probably not going to get that weekly EMA 12 test, and we're just going to continue up as people try to flock to the safety of gold. So a lot of it kind of depends on what's going to happen with the market. But I think if it was going to shape up weekly consolidation, it would be this, where you're getting a head and shoulders that basically brings it back down. So you'd be looking for a lower high here against this high. That's not to say that I think it's going to happen, but it's something to be on the lookout for. If you're trying to get long here, just be aware of that. But this one, I'm still interested in trying to get into gold. Okay, up next is SMCI. This is something that they've been talking about in the chart guys a lot, and I've been noticing again and again, is anytime we get a sideways consolidation like this over a long period of time, it's a really good setup for a long. We keep seeing these break bull. We saw it with silver recently, and now here we've got a really solid look for SMCI. And I find this one actually kind of difficult to trade, so SMCI had this inside day down in here, right? And after that inside day, I was thinking bullish on the name. And so if we look at it, this was the inside day. And let me just point out, here was the low of that day right there. And so on this day, when we opened near that low, I took a shot on SMCI long with a level burner trade against that low. And what did it do? Well, it broke below, stopped me out, and then did the rally. And it's been going up ever since. So I don't trade SMCI very much, but that's kind of not fair. that's just, I guess that's just how it goes in the market sometimes. But I would love to actually get in on this, because where do I think it could go? Well, I'm looking at, I got some anchored VWAPs. So here's the all-time high anchored VWAP, and you see it's been acting as resistance all the way down. I imagine if we break out of this, we're going to come up and test that. So that's sort of my target zone for this would be in the 55-ish area that we could push up to there if we break out above this high. Still need to see what it's going to take to get there. So my eyes are on this one. Tesla was another one, very similar to QQQ, where it had this push up into the resistances of prior days and then a solid flush down, but still just balanced. If you look at it here on the 4-hour time frame, we've basically got a 4-hour tightening range here, right? So we had our nice solid move up, down, lower high, higher low, lower high, and then we're just sort of tightening in here. So as we get tighter and tighter and tighter, this is another one of those tightening ranges where we're going to get some volatility. We're either going to get a push up or we're going to completely break down again. But either way, volume is coming this week. That's my guess anyway. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about CoreWeave. And so with CoreWeave, this highlights one of my favorite trades that I do, which I call an opening dip. And that's the trade, and the setup that I typically try to get on the opening dip is what I call a level burner. And so this is something that you see over and over and over and over again, and especially in stocks that are trending up. So this is a blue sky breakout name. We had a big push up to blue skies back on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we had essentially what is an inside day. It did push up over the prior day high here midday, but then it just kept on balancing. So after you get a big move, there's often balance. And so I knew coming into the following day that if we held the lows of prior day, and in this case, an hourly higher low that I marked off there, then that was super bullish. Sadly, I didn't focus on this name because I was focused on a different name, Circle, which also had an insane push up the day before and a gap up. So I was really focused on getting along in here, which I did. But I didn't end up holding onto that trade. I just got a win, and then I tried to get back into it, and it was a bit of a mess for me, to be quite honest. And this one here was yesterday high of day on Circle, and it definitely was a level burner. When you gap up, you want to, you see profit taking off the open. In the chart guys community, they call it back burner trade, where you get 5-minute oversold on the profit taking off the open after the gap up, and then you bounce from there and rally into the end of the day. And so I was interested in that trade, and that's what a lot of the folks in the chart guys were doing. And what I didn't realize is it's just another form of my opening dip trade. You can always get an opening dip in a level burner trade. It's just on these strong names. But I was really focused on this one, done in the tactics that the chart guys use, where you're really focused on like a 1-minute time frame stair step break. And I'll show you what that looked like. So gap up open. The top was actually reached here in pre-market, and then tried to get back up there again before the open, and then the profit taking occurred. And so we had this 1-minute downtrend, and right here it broke the stair step, and this is ideally what you would get is you'd get long on that break with your stop below that low on the next candle. And what you're looking for on these is once the break happens, you want to get it all the way back up to that 1-minute EMA 12. You want to see a hard push to there. And if you get that, that typically is a better than 1-to-1 on your risk. I always use this little tool to measure. Here's one unit of measure in this candle to the bottom of that candle. And then the next unit of measure gets you to here, which is below the 1-minute EMA 12, right? And then this is a third unit of measure, which gets you way above the 1-minute EMA 12 on it. And so I'm always like looking at this as bounces are happening and judging what is the strength of this bounce, like from where that bottom was set, how much of a bounce am I getting compared to that bottoming candle. And so when I bought this one here on the 1-minute stair step break and it pushed up, I was very aware and conscious of the fact that we were not getting 1-to-1 on the bounce. And so that increases the odds that that's not the bottom, that it's going to actually continue to push down. It couldn't even get to the 1-minute EMA 12, which is on a good bounce what you should definitely be able to get. So I was not able to take half off of my risk. I didn't take anything off. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's going to do what they do sometimes, which is come back down, set a higher low, and then go. It didn't do that. And I had my stop down here below that low. And I became aware as it was coming down, my stop is going to get hit and I'm going to take a stop on this. But so I'm zooming out and I'm realizing as the moment is happening, I'm realizing yesterday high of day is here, right? And if I'd been trading this in my own way, the way that I typically do it with an opening dip and a level burner, I would have been watching this not thinking I got to get long in here. I would have been watching this thinking my stop needs to be down here. I want to see it hold above yesterday high of day, ideally not even get close to it. But I'm willing to risk to there. Like normally I'd be looking at, I'm watching the move down and I'm looking for some sort of show of strength or slow down. And somewhere in here when I saw this candle going up, I probably would have said boom, buy there, and my stop would have been here for the move up. So that's how I would have normally done it, but I was trying to do it in the chart guy's way of trading, and I ended up having to double down on the break. I realized I got to put my stop lower. It was too much risk that I'd put on here to extend it all the way down to there. So I just picked the psychological level of 205 and I went to like 204.48 or 49 or something like that. And in the end, because I got one entry there and I got another entry right down here at the bottom, my average was somewhere in there. And I managed to get this trade going. Thank goodness for this candle right here. So anyway, it was a winning trade, good trade. I was happy for that trade. But this weekend I'm looking back and I'm going over what other charts I need to look at. And I found I found CoreWeave. And this is gold, this trade. So, okay, let's go back to the daily time frame so you can see it. So on the daily time frame, we had a breakout on Tuesday. We had balance on Wednesday. There was a holiday Thursday, and now this is Friday. So coming into the day on Friday, I'm looking at this chart. I'll go to the 30-minute time frame, and what do I see? Okay, I see here was the big move up. Here's the balance from prior day. We have an hourly higher low. In the after hours and pre-market, the hourly higher low held. A bit of a push up, and then we're pulling back in. Okay, so I see this as like this thing is raring to go. And any move down against this hourly higher low, as long as it doesn't break that, that's a bullish trade. So I'm interested. And so I had, in the pre-market, I had put this on my list thinking opening dip, level burner. So let's look at how that one would have played out. I'll go to the 2-minute time frame. I mean, it's just kind of a beauty. I'm even going to go to the 1 minute time frame. Here it is. So very same setup I described with Circle. You could be looking at this 1 minute stair step down. You get an inside bar, breaks lower. You know, as long as you're not breaking prior bar high, you're not interested in the long yet. And so here is an inside bar, a push lower, another inside bar, another push lower, and then back up. So if you were quick on your toes, you could get this as your long, right there. And personally, given how this was moving, I still would have been risking to that below that hourly high or low. And then away this one goes. And so, I mean, at this point, this is the kind of trade where this thing is a blue sky breakout name. You get a super low risk entry like that. You take some portion of it off. Like what I typically do is I call it my insurance. So I'm measuring this, I'm looking for the move up. And based on this, I'm looking for it to move up to my get, 1-to-1 off. But based on the speed of this, I would have been letting this go. Look at this thing go. I wouldn't have taken anything off. I would have just let it go. And then we get up here into this balance. And up here, when you start to balance, that's where I take half off. And then that's my insurance paid. And then I'm looking for another leg up. I'm looking for blue sky, another leg up. And considering that I probably would have, considering the pull-in that we later had, and then this move up, I probably would have taken another portion off here, and I'd be what I call down to a runner, and I would have let it go. And then we'd be going into next week with me holding this position for a swing. This was, to me, a much easier and cleaner trade than the Circle trade. But you're just one person. You're taking your best shot with the things you see in front of you in the morning, and you can't win them all. But for the record, this is what I long for every day. No pun intended. This is what I long for and what I hope for when I'm trading every day. Okay, and with that, I'm going to call it. I hope you guys have a great week. Sadly, I actually have jury duty. I got a call on Sunday night to find out where I have to report on Monday morning. I don't know how long that's going to take. I might not even be able to trade this week. I'm hoping to use the excuse that I actually need to be at my desk to work or I don't earn money. We'll see if that judge can let me off. Otherwise, I'll be performing my civic duties. So have a great week, and good luck. Hey everybody, if you like my indicators on TradingView and you like the content I'm producing here on this channel, please remember to like and subscribe.